Welcome to our Good Friday worship service. We ended our Maundy Thursday worship with Jesus' arrest. Tonight, we continue to recall Jesus' amazing, life-giving love for us and to reflect on what it means for us today to stand at the foot of the cross.
His life was filled with purpose to do his Father's will. The essence of his mission drove Jesus up that hill. And at his crucifixion, no human eye could see that love's finest hour was just beyond the tree, beyond the cross, beyond a tomb filled with despair, lies the hope I have inside for all that Christ did there. Though death might come, his light will shine again. Beyond the cross, beyond the cross. And now each day of living begins with sacrifice. For now it is my bidding to offer up my life. And each new day the crucifixion humbles me again, as I die to my ambitions and in remembrance. Beyond the cross, beyond a tomb filled with despair, lies the hope I have inside for all that Christ did there. Though death must come, his light will shine again. Beyond the cross, beyond the cross.
Let us pray. God, we gather in your presence on this holy, dark night. We look forward to the resurrection celebration, but we know that first we must remember what you did for our sake.
Give us courage to face the cross. Give us ears to hear. Give us eyes to see. Open us to your amazing love that sacrifices all for our sake. Amen.
Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people. He told them, "You brought me this man as someone who turns the people against the government. I've questioned him in front of you and haven't found this man guilty of the crimes of which you accuse him. Neither could Herod. So he sent this man back to us. This man hasn't done anything to deserve the death penalty, so I'm going to have him whipped and set free." The whole crowd then shouted, "Take him away, free Barabbas for us." Now Barabbas had been thrown into prison for his involvement in an uprising that had taken place in the city and for murder. But because Pilate wanted to free Jesus, he spoke to the people again. They began yelling, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" A third time Pilate spoke to them. He asked, "Why? What has he done wrong? I haven't found this man deserving of the death penalty, so I'm going to have him whipped and set free." But the crowd pressured Pilate. They shouted that Jesus had to be crucified, and they finally won. Pilate decided to give in to their demand. He freed Barabbas, who had been put in prison for rioting and murder, because that's what they wanted. But he let them do what they wanted to Jesus.
Oh, Savior, that now languish with sorrow, abuse, and scorn. How does that visage languish once more, most bright as morn? My grief and bitter passion were all for sinners' gain. My mind was the transgression, but thine the deadly pain.
As the soldiers led Jesus away, they grabbed a man named Simon, who was from the city of Cyrene. Simon was coming into Jerusalem. They laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus.
I am not proud to admit it, but it was my morbid curiosity that got the better of me that day. I had always enjoyed being part of a spectator crowd in someone else's tragedies. Oh, I had convinced myself that it was my empathy that drew me to a stranger's house that was burning, or someone trying to be cured of an injury as I looked on. But not anymore. Not after what I unknowingly got myself into that day. It was around 8 in the morning when I was passing through Jerusalem on my way home to Cyrene. I had been walking since dawn, but really was in no hurry. It would be weeks, maybe even months before I was back home. I had disciplined myself not to think about time or distance or home. I heard the crowd before I saw them, laughing, cheering. My first thought that there was some official celebration that was happening, so I picked up my pace to catch up, to see what was going on. As I came closer, I realized that I had been wrong about the sound of the crowd. It was not cheering that I heard, it was jeering. There was laughter, all right, but not the kind that wraps a person in joy, but the kind that pierces and wounds the heart. Every once in a while, there was a high-pitched staccato, a slur of mockery. It was the sound of angry fear. I slowed down to give myself some space to decide if the situation was just too dangerous to get involved with. It was then that I noticed them, the tips of the large wooden cross, rising above the heads of the mobs. It finally dawned on me what this was all about, a crucifixion. I had heard that the Romans still used this brutal form of execution, but I had never seen it. My heart began to beat faster, pounding away at my ribs. I wish I could tell you that it was from disgust and that I turned away and continued on my journey, but that is not the truth. The truth is, my heart quickened with excitement, and I soon found myself running, pushing my way through the crowd to get a closer look. What I expected to see, I'm really not sure. The horror I came upon will be forever burned in my mind. I had done a good job of getting into the crowd. Too good. I found myself standing right next to one of the convicted criminals as he fell face down in the road under the weight of his cross. As I looked at him, I wondered how he had been able to carry the cross at all. His torn flesh, his garments had become one, adhered in blood. Although I could not see beneath the robe, I knew he had been flogged. flogged with that leather belt and metal thongs that grabbed, twisted, turned into his skin, slowly tearing it away from his bones. I looked away for a moment, then down at my feet. I noticed that a stream of blood was collecting by my sandals. I tried to step back, but the crowd was pushing, trying to get a better look. I couldn't help myself. No matter how gruesome, I felt compelled to take a second look. I figured he must have been beaten with some kind of blunt instrument. His nose was off to one side. His eyes were almost swollen shut. Lacerations everywhere. He dripped in blood. I felt certain that even his best friends would not recognize him. What had he done? I wondered. What had he done? He had to have done something awful to deserve this inhumane punishment. I had heard that this type of treatment was saved for those who tried to overthrow the Roman government. Maybe he had attempted an assassination. My last thought before I turned to make my way back through the crowd was that this man must be the scum of the earth. As I turned to go, I heard someone shout, "Hey, you, foreigner. Looks like this man could use a little assistance." I was just thinking, you are just traveling through, and hey, guess what? So is this man. When he referred to the criminal, he kicked him as hard as he could in the ribs. The man let out a cry of pain that made me wince. I had had enough. I wanted nothing more to do with this situation. I said to the soldier, "You're right. I am just traveling through, and I really do need to get going." I turned, hoping he would leave me alone. "Not so fast," the guard said. "This man needs help with his baggage. I think you're the perfect travel companion to help him out." Then the guard let out a laugh, and he slapped me into the realization of what he wanted from me. He wanted me to carry the criminal's cross. I was terrified, and I was repulsed at the same time. I looked down at the man on the ground. He no doubt deserved to die, but I only wanted to watch. I didn't want to participate in his death. With all the courage I could muster, I said, "Yeah, I really think you're choosing the wrong person for this honor. As you can see, I'm not the strongest one around." I pointed to a man who was twice my size, and I said, "Why don't you ask him? He looks like he could do a much better job." The guard was incensed. He came over. He grabbed the back of my cloak. He said through clenched teeth, "This is not a request. It's a command. You will carry that cross." He shoved me in front of himself, bent down, and with a great heave, hoisted the cross on my shoulders. The weight of that cross was excruciating. I was humiliated being part of this death parade. I could hardly stand the looks that the people gave me as I passed them by. Hey, I was no criminal. In my home country, I was not only a law-abiding citizen, I was respected. I was looked up to. I decided if I had to participate in this crucifixion, I was not going to associate myself with these criminals. I might be carrying the cross of one of them, but I was not one of them. I would neither play the fool or the sympathizer. It took every ounce of strength I had, but I carried that cross with my head held high, as if it were an easy load for me. I even tried to align myself with the Roman guards by commenting on how well constructed the cross was, half joking about the rare opportunity to carry a cross without having to get nailed to it. My outward bravado could not, however, quiet my inner rage. Oddly enough, I did not direct my hate, the feelings I had for the Roman soldiers. No, I directed it at the criminal whose cross I was carrying. Over and over in my mind, I silently chanted, I hope this criminal is thankful that I'm carrying his cross for him. I hope he is thankful. The distance that I had to carry the cross was really not all that far. It was just outside the city gates of us on a small hill called Golgotha. I was relieved, however, when we reached the top of that hill and the burden of that cross was lifted from my shoulders. The soldiers took the cross from me. They dropped it on the ground with a thud that made my whole body jerk. As I stood doubled over, trying to catch my breath, they slammed the man whose cross it was on top of it, and they began to bind him in place. It was the first time that I had really looked into his face. His eyes met mine. They locked. His eyes, they were kind. They were kind and they were full of love. Eyes of a criminal were not supposed to be kind. They were supposed to be filled with hate and evil. I closed my eyes to block out whatever it was that was pulling at my soul. A few seconds later, I opened my eyes again and was drawn back into that look of compassion. Compassion for me. Right before the first nail was driven into his wrist, he said to me in a very clear, quiet voice, "Thank you. Thank you for carrying my cross." For a second, I felt nothing but pure love. And then terror began to creep into every pore of my being. How could he have known? How could he have known the chant that I had been saying as I carried that cross? I hope he's thankful. I hope he is thankful. How could he have known what I had been thinking? I started to back away in a frenzy, a state of panic. I clumsily backed into the Roman soldiers who pushed me out of their way. I heard the sound of metal upon metal and the first cry of excruciating pain. I could stand this no longer. I had to get out of this place. I started to run, stumbling, pushing people out of my way. I ran until I could run no further. I collapsed by the side of the road. Tears gushed. I rolled back and forth and back as if I were in great pain. A passerby stopped and asked if I was hurt, if I needed help. My response to him must have seemed crazy. I grabbed him. I clung to him as I said over and over, "What have I just done? What have I just done? I never meant to participate. I just went along with the crowd. I only wanted to watch." It has been years since I traveled that road to Golgotha and played a role in Jesus' crucifixion. Yes, I know all about Jesus, and better yet, I have experienced the love and freedom from Jesus and from him giving me forgiveness. You see, I did not stay by the side of the road that day. I got up enough courage to go back up the hill, find out who this man really was. In some ways, I have really not traveled very far since that day. I never did go back to Cyrene permanently. I live just outside of Jerusalem with my wife and my two sons, Alexander and Rufus. In other ways, I have traveled a great distance. I am part of a religious community that proclaims Jesus as the Messiah, the Son of God. People today are afraid of us like they were afraid of Jesus. And if we are not careful, we are persecuted. But I am more courageous today. I have seen the risen Lord. I do not shrink or cower any longer. As a matter of fact, you can often find me on that road to Golgotha. But I am not there to watch. I go to carry other people's crosses.
When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my riches gain I count but loss, and for contempt on all my pride. See from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love all mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown?
When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him. 2 criminals were also crucified with him, one on his right and the other on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." Meanwhile, the soldiers divided his clothes among themselves by throwing dice. The people stood there watching. But the rulers were making sarcastic remarks. They said, "He saved others. If he's the Messiah that God has chosen, let him save himself." The soldiers also mocked him. They would go up to him, offer him some vinegar, and say, "If you're the king of the Jews, save yourself." A written notice was placed above him. It said, "This is the king of the Jews."
One of the criminals hanging there insulted Jesus by saying, "So you're really the Messiah, are you? Well, save yourself and us." But the other criminal scolded him, "Don't you fear God at all? Can't you see that you're condemned in the same way that he is? Our punishment is fair. We're getting what we deserve. But this man hasn't done anything wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you enter your kingdom." Jesus said to him, "I guarantee this truth. Today you will be with me in paradise."
What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What
Around noon, darkness came over the entire land and lasted until 3 in the afternoon. The sun had stopped shining. The curtain in the temple was split in two. Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I entrust my spirit." After he said this, he died. When an army officer saw what had happened, he praised God and said, "Certainly this man was innocent." Crowds had gathered to see the sight, but when all of them saw what had happened, they cried and returned to the city. All his friends, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance and watched everything.
Beneath the cross of Jesus, I long to take my stand. The shadow of the mighty cross within a weary land, a home within the wilderness, a rest upon the way. From the burning of the noontide heat and burdens of the day.
What does it mean to be beneath the cross of Jesus? Protection, love, belonging. This is the place I seek, a place to be with him, to be in God's presence, to be alone with him, totally focused, enfolded. I look for this place every morning. It has been a dock, a bench in the sun, a rocking chair on a porch or a patio, a comfy chair before the fire or sunny window. It is usually a special place of warmth, light, and soft music. It's a place of abiding, restoration, of thinking, thanking, seeking, and learning. It is a place where I read his word, feel his love and power. It is a place where I know I am a child of God, a place where I am held and loved. What does it mean to be beneath the cross of Jesus? It means grace, mercy, forgiveness, healing, direction, and purpose. It's a place where I give up control and rest in his gift. It is a place where I am made new, where I give up my own plan and accept his. A place where I release my fears and worries and trust in him. Beneath the cross, I am redeemed with his sacrifice and his blood. I am forgiven and changed. Just as when Jesus touched the leper and said, "Be clean," he touches me and makes me clean, forgiven, and healed. I have always been a planner. I like to be in control of every situation. No surprises, put in the time to prepare, look at all the angles, consider every detail. I often forget that this isn't God's plan and that God is the one in control. This was shown to me early in our married life with our son, Christian. We had a perfect plan. We had a schedule. We put in the work and organization. I was trusting in human ability to control life and outcomes. God gave us Christian. He wasn't the norm. He wasn't the expected. He broke all the rules. I had to give up my plan and accept God's. God is in control. It is his gift, his grace, that gives me life and healing. My healing comes when I totally trust in him. When I release my fears and worries, in his grace and mercy, I am healed. God continued to lead me into unexpected places. As I said, I like control, calm, no surprises. Why then did I become a teacher of the emotionally and behaviorally disordered students? This is the path that God opened to me. Each and every day, I had to trust in him, rely on him, and be directed by him. I had to claim his patience, his compassion, and his love. In him, I am healed. What does it mean to be beneath the cross of Jesus? It means abundant life and everlasting security. It is a place of joy and peace, a place of safety, a place where God is my refuge and shield, a place of strength because I have his power within me, a place where I can love and care for others and do his will. This past year has been difficult for all of us. Our lives with this pandemic have been changed. We have been restricted, isolated, and fearful. This year, Fred and I have also undergone the selling of our Inver home twice. We have moved from a home we had been in for 45 years and a neighborhood I had been in all my life. For us, it was monumental. We packed and downsized and then packed some more. We moved, but then the house didn't close. There was a discrepancy in the title due to land boundaries. The Inver house was now empty, the buyer leaving the house after living there 2 months. We and our lawyers were involved in negotiation with the Union Pacific Railroad, a doubly unsettling time. Would we ever sell an empty property with title problems in the middle of a pandemic? Sitting beneath the cross of Jesus is a place of trust. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not to your own understanding. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, or he is our peace. My morning devotion time became a time of learning to trust. Yes, we could sell a house in the middle of all these obstacles, but I wouldn't want to do it without sitting beneath Christ's cross. I wouldn't want to do it without his strength and love. I trust in him. The God of the universe gives me joy and peace in this world because he has prepared a place for me in his kingdom, a place of everlasting security. I love sitting beneath the cross of Jesus.
Upon the cross of Jesus, my eyes at times can see the living form of one who suffered there for me. And from my contrite heart with tears to wonders I confess the wonders of his glorious love and my unworthlessness.
I promise to serve you to the end. I recall when we walked the cross through the cross through South St. Paul and Inver Grove Heights, the cross that you were crucified on, telling the cities what we believe as believers. With our sunrise services I can recall the first one. It was held at this facility, and it was Easter 1963. All that was here at Bethesda were the footings for this church. I use every night a cross that was made by a fellow, by Lauren Neubauer. I fall asleep with the cross, and I wake up with the cross. And when I cannot find the cross, I search till I find it and to hold it to keep myself with the cross. The cross I use daily without my wife Carol, even while I do not daily devotions with her. We sing hymns, and when she is alert, I get to hear a beautiful alto voice again. Oh, that's such a joy to me. And I believe Carol knows that also. The tie of the cross of Jesus brings back good memories, and each time we sing it again, it refreshes me. I will leave viewing the cross on which you were crucified and keep using it as a cross without you, Lord, hanging on it. God bless, and amen.
I take across your shadow from my abiding place. I ask no other sunshine than the sunshine of his face. Content to let the world go by, to know nor pain nor loss. My sinful self, my only shame, my glory, all the cross.
For me, the cross represents love. When I look at that vertical arm of the cross, I see God's love coming down to me and also see my connection and relationship with him. God's amazing, unconditional love is pouring down upon me from the cross. It is because of his love and Christ's sacrifice that I am forgiven and made right with God. Christ suffered and died for me on that cross. By his blood, his suffering and death, I am freed from my sins and made new. I am very thankful. Loving God means I want to know him more, and I want to know his will. I try to do this through worship, through prayer, and Bible study. In this last COVID year, Joy and I have been doing morning devotions together. She gets up earlier and has her alone time, but then I join her and we have this time to pause, break from the world, and meditate. Right now, we just finished Jeremiah. Oh, God was not happy in Jeremiah. We are now reading in Luke and a number of daily devotional books. We are also reading Traveling Light by Max Lucado again. This has been a neat time for getting priorities straight, focusing on God, giving up earthly concerns, and giving a time to getting God's reassurance and direction. Man, it just feels right. God has reached down to me from the cross many times through my life. I have sought his strength and his help. I can remember sitting at the top of the roof at our house in Inver Grove, looking at the piles and piles of shingles and all of the lumber there. And what a huge job before me. It was at that time I asked for God's help and promised the house would be used for his ministry. I also remember our son Christian burning up with fever and having a seizure, and I received strength and calmness. I remember 3 guys in a boat, then 3 guys in a wilderness. Well, actually, it was Art Giroux, Harry Gustafson, and myself. We were just overwhelmed with awe at God's power and at the beauty of his creation. I know God reached down to me by finding us a great real estate agent and a good lawyer last year. He reaches down to me with hope and peace. Scripture tells us, in my anguish, I cried to the Lord and he set me free. You know, I love because he first loved me. As I look at the cross's horizontal beam, I see love helping others, serving others, reaching out. This is following Christ's example. Love is action. No one has shown more love than Jesus. He shows us how to demonstrate love to each other and to the world. Showing love this year is a little different than last year. I haven't been able to go to Feed My Starving Children. I haven't been to Neighbors Incorporated. I haven't even been weeding the church gardens or providing hospitality treats. This year I have been shoveling snow for my new neighbors. Well, really, I'm just neatening it up because all of the driveways are plowed by a commercial company. I've been picking up trash in the neighborhood on a daily walk. I've been volunteering at a place called Valley Outreach. It's a mile or two from here, and its mission is very similar to Neighbors Incorporated. When I go there, I sort and bag clothes. I load trucks with clothing that goes to other places. Here I have met others demonstrating Christ's love as well. The lady who trained me, her name is Karen. It was her birthday one day. She went to her husband and said, "Could we use that money to buy children's clothes so we can put it in the shop at the store for the people that need it?" Her husband, another character, he recently got, according to his wife, a much needed haircut. All through the pandemic, no haircut. Well, it comes to pass, he pays for the haircut and he tips her 10 times the normal tip because he figured he would have been to the barber 10 times. I call that a real demonstration of care and love for others. Our neighbor Dick, he lives in the other half of the twin home that we now live in. He leads a senior Bible study group at his church. He's almost 80 and he's one of the youngest ones. He tried to keep the group going through outside meetings with masks. It didn't work. They were too afraid of what might happen. Well, what did he do? After some trepidation and insecurity, he took to learning how to facilitate Zoom meetings, and he continues to model Christ's love to others, and the group is still meeting. I am thankful for the cross. I'm thankful for God's love and sacrifice and opportunities to grow and feel the love of God.
Jesus, keep me near the cross. There's a precious fountain, free to all, a healing stream flows from Calvary's mountain. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my ransomed soul shall find rest beyond the river.
At the foot of the cross, there was a good man who had God's approval. His name was Joseph. He was a member of the Jewish council, but he had not agreed with what they had done. He was from the Jewish city of Arimathea, and he was waiting for God's kingdom. He went to Pilate and he asked for the body of Jesus. After they took Jesus' body down from the cross, he wrapped it in linen. Then he laid the body in the tomb, cut in a rock, a tomb in which no one had ever been buried. It was Friday, the day of rest, a holy day, just beginning. The women who had come down with Jesus from Galilee followed closely behind Joseph. They observed the tomb and how Jesus' body was laid in it. Then they went back to the city and they prepared spices and perfumes. But on the day of rest, a holy day, they rested according to the commandment.